Welcome to Epic History.
Epic history!
Because history is
Epic!
I'm Mr. Nickum.
I'm Mr. Dawson.
Welcome to our video log or vlog, where basically once every so often we are going to try to supplement or to just help to cover topics that we're not necessarily going to be able to cover in class.
And we're going to do this every week or every couple of weeks, or just to be honest with you, as often as we feel like it.
Hopefully more than less.
So what are we talking about today?
That is a good question, Mr. Dawson. Today we're going to be talking about the rise of Sumer. Sumer was one of the first big areas in Mesopotamia that we're going to talk about. And in Mesopotamia, in Sumer, they developed this thing called a city-state. Can you tell us all about Sumer and the city-states?
Sure. So if you remember from our in-class sessions, Mesopotamia is the area between the Tigris and Euphrates River, which Mesopotamia literally means between the rivers. So it just calls it what it is. And so this was an area of very fertile land. It was good farmland. And so like any good farmers, people started settling near where the good land was. And so it developed an agricultural society where pretty much everybody was farmers. And so that is what we call a rural society. But these people started to come together for protection, for sharing of resources, and that's how the city-state developed. A city-state is a city and the land that surrounds it, and that's why they call it a city-state.
Each city-state basically operated as its own government. Even though they might have all been in the same country, each city-state kind of was separate of each other city. Okay, they might have traded with each other, they might have communicated with each other, but mainly they had their own sets of rules, their own kings, their own government, their own policies and rules that they would follow.
Sure. So it's kind of like if Santiago and Santo Domingo were each ruled by completely different people who had different laws and different cultures, and then the area between, that's where they were all trying to farm. And so they started getting into wars over this land because they were trying to compete for the resources. That's my table, Mr. Nickum. You can't have it. So two of the most important city-states in ancient Mesopotamia were the city of Ur and the city of Uruk. Ur, you may have heard of, it's mentioned in the Bible. That's where Abraham started out. That's where God appeared to him and told him to start moving. And Uruk was ruled by a different king, one that you may have also heard of, Gilgamesh. And we're going to talk more about King Gilgamesh later on in the class because his story is really
Epic.
epic.
And we're going to learn about the Epic of Gilgamesh a little later.
Right.
Right now, though, I want to take some time and talk about the Acadian Empire. All right, one of the other empires, one of the other city-states that developed, as we said earlier, was the city-state of Ur. And while all these battles were happening, the Sumerians experienced a time of peace at one point. Eventually, these wars kind of ended, and people were tired of fighting, and we had this time of peace. Unfortunately, this peace was broken around 2300 BC. That means 2,300 years before Christ, essentially. This peace was broken when Sargon, who was one of the founders of the Acadian territory, decided that he wanted to expand his territory. And in doing so, he started taking over the other city-states in the area. And eventually, he was one of the first kings or rulers to have a permanent army, meaning I don't just make an army when I need it, but I have an army at all times. And so he led one of the world's first permanent armies, and this led to one of the world's first empires. An empire is the land or different territories which all of the people fall under a single rule. So this idea of city-state kind of went away under the idea of an empire, which is all ruled by one king.
So that would be like if Santiago decided to attack Santo Domingo, take over, and both of the city-states are now ruled by Mr. Nickum. He becomes the emperor of those city-states.
My empire. Next up, we're going to talk about the religion of the area.
People of different vocations now start developing. And so you can have people who specialize in teaching and people who specialize in being an emperor. And it allows more flexibility in society. And some of these people began specializing in religion, and we call those people priests.
Most of the priests worked in an area of the city known as the center of the town. This is where the city's ziggurat would be built. Usually, a ziggurat was a stepped pyramid that would be visible from all over the city. For instance, in Santiago, you can see the monument from most parts of the city. And when you think of Santiago, you think of the symbol of the monument. That's what the ziggurat would have been to places like Babylon and Ur. The ziggurat was the tallest building. And some of these ziggurats are still standing today. Archaeologists have been able to uncover some of the ruins of some of the ziggurats from that time. Now, the priests during these times would work in the ziggurats, and usually each city-state was designated had a designated god that they would worship, and the ziggurat in that town would be dedicated to that god. But in Sumerian culture, they believed in something called polytheism. Mr. Dawson, what is polytheism?
Polytheism means there are many gods. There's not just one God. So if you've been in some of my Bible classes, we talked just briefly about Hinduism, where they have thousands of gods. That's polytheism. It means many gods.
Now, while polytheism was the worship of many gods, Christianity today is what we call monotheistic, or monotheism. That means the worship of one God.
So to help you really understand this concept of city-state, we've got a special project designed for you to do over the next week to help you design your own city-state. So you get to be the emperor of your own city-state.
As you can see on the instructions that will be attached with this video, there are a number of requirements. And I just want to talk briefly about what is this project. Basically, you are the city-state designer. You are going to design your city-state in the Fertile Crescent. You need to include a map that shows us where in the Fertile Crescent your city is. You need to, there are a number of problems that you are going to have to solve that each city-state has to encounter. And those problems are going to be listed on the worksheet, but you have to come up with solutions. Now, many of these solutions we've already talked about in class. We're looking to see if you can figure out how to solve some of the problems the Sumerians had in your own city-state. The directions, like I said, are going to be attached to this video, and you'll have some time this week to work on it. You can be as artistic as you want. You're not going to be graded on your artistic ability, but let's be honest. With a little bit of effort, anybody can put in some good work.
If it's at least as good as I could draw it, that's what we're looking for, because I'm a terrible artist. But if something is really exceptional and just blows us away,
House points.
House points.
They're coming at you.
They're coming. So be aware of that, because we all know that Mr. Nickum's house needs to go down this year.
We are 2 years winning.
No more sapiente. No more. Nada más. You're going down, people.
Well, guys, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us for Epic History, because history is
Epic.